Thank you, dear. Welcome, everybody. It's very special. So there are 41 documentaries throughout the whole LFF program this year, 41 feature documentaries. So I'm very, very glad to celebrate somehow the forum. And thank you to LFF and to CVET for organizing this. I think it's also good to talk and also having these spaces at the industry sessions to talk about documentaries. I think it's a very exciting time for documentaries, and we have decided to talk about two very special films that are in the program. So one is Mother Vera, and the other one is Two Strangers Trying Not to Kill Each Other. I think what fascinated us about these two films is that they were able to get very close to their characters and still keep a very formal style and language, which actually kind of elevated both of the films. I'm curious if you have been able to watch all of the films. Have you seen Mother Vera? Yeah, okay. And Two Strangers, there was the premiere last night. Excellent. Good to see. Good to see. If not, please rush the commentaries to the present industry or actually to the very premiere of Mother Vera. It's coming on Sunday, so please don't miss the film. But I'm sure you will get excited. We will share some clips as well, and we will talk about the creative processes. And it's an invitation to see how documentary is moving forward. It's experimenting, but I think it's a celebration as well of how intimacy and how getting close to your characters and how honoring your characters can really, really go into making a very special and moving film. So let's please first welcome the filmmakers. So from Mother Vera, we have Cecile Embleton. And from Two Strangers Trying Not to Kill Each Other, we have Jacob Perlmutter and Manon Winnet. Great. Welcome to LFF. Exciting times, of course. Your premiere was last night. Your premiere will be on Sunday. As I mentioned, it's just a pleasure. I mean, of course, I'm the ambassador for documentaries, so anytime I can talk about documentaries, I will do it. But since we started talking, like, okay, well, what should we do this year? And when we were seeing all the films that were already selected, we said, okay, this is a good combination of films. I think that the films can also talk with each other. I'm glad you also watch each other's films, so we can talk about that as well. But yeah, it's a talk about getting a bit further into how was your creative processes, and also about, again, getting very close to your characters, how to make very formal choices, how to keep a language that keeps coherent, but also is communicating the way you were thinking about as an artist as well. So let's start the conversation, but thank you for making two very remarkable films. It's truly, really, really amazing the work you have done.
Thank you.
Let me start with you, Cecile. Your co-director, unfortunately, is not here, Alice. Let me read to you what the one-liner of the film is. So it says, Mother Vera, a visually striking documentary about a young Orthodox nun who must confront her past as she faces her desires and an uncertain future. Tell us more about that, and also I would like to know more about how you and your co-director started to think about the project and how it developed from a photography project to a film.
Yeah, thank you. Hi everyone. So Alice couldn't be here today, unfortunately she's on a job. It really started from Alice's photography project, this film. So I worked with Alice for about 5 years on a project she was doing on Christian pilgrimage. And we spent a lot of time in Lourdes, in France. And then we had one chapter in Poland, and that's where we met Mother Vera. And Alice took her photograph, which became kind of the star photograph of the series, probably because Vera does have an amazing energy and it's a beautiful picture. And immediately, Mother Vera invited us to Belarus. And so that's where it started. And then Alice's project won this prize, the Sony World Photographer of the Year. And they gave a very small grant to go and do another project for the following year. So we went to Belarus on Mother Vera's invitation and discovered this incredible monastery that she was living in. And there was 200 men there in rehabilitation, and we discovered that Mother Vera is actually kind of horse whisperer. And for a filmmaker, it was like, wow, this is really extraordinary. And the relationship developed with Vera as she invited us in. But certainly talking about intimacy, we were just saying earlier, there's many layers to intimacy, and it took a long time to, Vera was very keen to show her life and happy on camera, so comfortable on camera, which I think also your protagonists are, which really helps to be thinking about a form, thinking about a formal language. So that's how it started.
Tell me more about that combination with Alice. Like, how are the roles? Are you constantly shooting together, or you were kind of apart, or looking for different things? I'm just curious.
We were constantly pretty much together, and the thing that was great about Alice and I is that we'd already worked in places, in spiritual communities together for 5 years, and we have even though Alice is an atheist and I am a spiritual person, whatever that means, I'm not religious, but spirituality is very important for me. So we're coming from completely different places, but we share a similar sensibility and sense of aesthetic, which I think without that, it would have been very difficult. It's almost like we don't need to really talk about it that much. Like the sense of aesthetic and the way that we saw that world together was organically grew out of what we'd already done. There was a big overlap. So yeah, we were together.
Constantly alert to what was happening.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit, we don't see Mother Vera in this clip, but there are a lot of, the black and white, that kind of importance of nature, and I will say also these glimpses of intimacy with these men, as you mentioned, you get into this place with all these men that are in rehabilitation. Tell us a bit about how was that process, and also because Mother Vera is kind of another type of character than all these men, and a bit about why you chose this clip to show it now. Yeah.
Sure, yeah, so Mother Vera obviously mysteriously absent, but the reason we chose this clip was just to illustrate that the men are a big part of the film as well, and they are all coming from difficult lives and trying to start again in the monastery, and they are a mirror for Mother Vera's past. And it was very difficult in the edit to balance these two elements and make sure that the men really serve to tell Vera's story, because they are fascinating as a collective character. Like, you see them and you're like, wow, I want to know more about it. So we had a bit of an issue of them kind of stealing a little bit sometimes the show, so the balancing was a tricky process. The black and white, so Alice, co-director, who's a photographer, works basically only in black and white, and obviously the photograph of Vera was in black and white. So for Alice, from the beginning, it was clear that it would be black and white, no questions. And for me, it was more of a process of exploring that world and getting to know Vera better and understanding why the choice. So it took me longer to get there, and then eventually realised that the black and white really enhances the extremity of Vera's story, which has many layers and is very complex, and also the extremity of this place, and these amazing kind of open, quite empty landscapes. We tried to emphasise that these people are living in this community. And the reason for that is to show the fragility of, a human being needing to be cared for. And lots of these people are there in, needing to receive compassion, needing to be healed. It's a process. It's about transformation, and so to kind of pull those opposites of the warmth of the community and also, you know, the coldness and, you know, the austerity, and how, you know, ultimately we're all alone, but we need each other. We need community, and so yeah, I think the black and white really pushes the emotion of the story. And Alice was absolutely right from the beginning. Go with black and white.
It felt really, really amazing, and I think indeed you were also very clever in the pace of the film, but also from the beginning on, you know, like, you know, this is Starfield, you have to rest, you have to take a look. It's about listening, it's about following, it's about, you know, looking. I think also the whole frame, as you could see, you have to look at the whole frame. Like there are also this, you know, that space for nature, for example, that I found it really fascinating, and I think it really highlighted what it was happening with the characters as well. So yeah, definitely, thank you. I think there's some commonalities also with Two Strangers. I think now that you are talking about transformation, that's also something that happened very much in the film. Let me start by reading to you as well what was the one-liner of your film, to see if you are agreeing with that one. Two strangers trying not to kill each other. Acclaimed photographer John Meyerowitz and artist Maggie Barnett are still in love after 30 years. Now they are having a documentary made about their relationship, artist couple. I think it's a good moment also to think, can you please start, I mean, again, an artist couple making a film about another artist couple, so really curious, like how did you get in touch with them and how the idea developed to really start filming?
So, hi everyone. I had been a big fan of Joel Meyerowitz's work for some time, and was dabble with photography, and saw him. He's from the Bronx, and I saw him on the streets of London, and I wasn't fully sure it was him, so I kind of followed him for a while, and in and out of a couple of shops, and because I wanted to say something to him, but I couldn't find the words, and then I lost him. A couple of weeks later, I saw him again, this time with Maggie, his wife. And I thought, oh my God, I just got to go and say something, and thanked him for his work. And then he introduced me to Maggie, and the way with which he introduced her was so beautiful. And when I looked at them as a couple, as an older couple, they kind of seemed to have this incredible aura about them. And it just like went straight into my heart. And then a couple of years later, after that encounter, I came across a blog that Maggie writes about their lives, and it's quite open. And something just felt like, oof, there could be some, these are really incredible people, and there could be a documentary in here. And we had a Zoom, and it was great. And then we started talking about what would this be like if us, you know, a couple made a film about another couple divided by 45 years odd, but with so much in common, and so much about Maggie and Joel, and the ways in which they relate to each other is so beautiful, and is a great kind of role model for relationships and love, which all hinge on communication. So for us, there was a kind of peering into the future quality to this endeavor as well. And so we embarked on what was kind of around about a year of filming, and whenever we would film with Maggie and Joel, we would live with them in their home, which also made for incredibly intimate material, and a series of unexpected events unfolded that no one could have anticipated, but we were all there together, the four of us, all the way.
And there's something, Manon, correct me if I'm wrong, but I felt as well that there is this urgent to be alert of everything that is happening, but especially with Maggie, I was constantly like, wow, there's something there, like happened also in Mother Vera. There is a moment in which only by watching her you say, wow, yeah, there is a film in here. Did you have that feeling as well when you were talking with them and you say, okay, Maggie will really bring a lot into the film?
It's a really interesting question. I don't think we had any expectations of what it could be. The idea was to create something about a relationship, about two people in love. But we had no idea who really Maggie was. We knew a lot more about Joel, so I think our attention initially was maybe more centralised on him until we got to know her, and to the levels we got to know her. And then, she's just a spirit of light. She's a very special person with many, many talents and a lot of love and a lot of wisdom, and she carries their relationship in a very particular way, and they both allowed us into their lives in a totally unprecedented way. I've never had an experience like that, and I don't think I'll ever have an experience again like that. It's very beautiful.
I think it's a good moment to show the clip first, because you will feel immediately the kind of access you had, but I think it says a lot about the formal choices that you were already thinking about, I will say. But so let's watch the clip and then let's talk about it. Let's see the first clip of two strangers trying not to kill each other.
I think, I don't want you to die first, because honestly, I know that I would be all right on my, I know that I can cope, I know that I would miss you like more than I can know now. But what it really is for me is like, hey, wait a minute, who will hold me if you die first? Who will hold me?
Yeah.
So then I want to die first, so I get to be held by you. But I can't bear the thought of your being alone. Sometimes, and if I wake up before you, I look at the blanket covering you to see if it's still going up. I want like so much more time still.
Please bring us to that moment, because I think it's sadly, especially when you are without expectations and then you suddenly get this scene, like what really happened, and also for your creative process, like how you managed when you saw this specific scene, for example.
When we spoke to Maggie and Joel about the idea of making the film, it was with the intention of not hiding anything. There was this willingness from both of them to show all of themselves, so they could explore what was happening for them and potentially offer something to an audience. But there were things that had been left unsaid that they really needed to figure out for themselves, and we gave them the space to do that. And they turned up in the way that they did in our presence, and sometimes not always in our presence. Often we would leave the camera rolling and we'd be out of the room, and life would unfold, conversations would happen.
Yeah, which is actually what happened here. We weren't in the room during this conversation. We found the frame. This frame becomes a kind of symbolic frame throughout the film. It's a frame that we return to, that the frame symbolizes a kind of theme of mortality, and you kind of find out the deeper meaning of that leaf picture above their bed as well. So this was a piece of footage that we collected pretty early on whilst we were still trying to work out our film language. And in the evenings we would quietly try to sort of, Manon and I would huddle together and scan through the rushes, and we were sort of on the fly trying to figure out what was our film language, what felt right, what works with these, what feels kind of, aligned with these protagonists. And we watched this and it was like, oh, this is this is it. This is about love. This is about mortality. This is about working through the time that these people have left. And this is a kind of language and a pace and a kind of framing that is going to serve this film. And from this point on, everything locked in, and we transformed from us working on the film to serving it, if that makes sense. It kind of showed itself.
Was it for you, Cecile, because I think this was kind of a scene that was very crucial in your process, did you have also kind of a moment like, oh wow, after this scene, we know exactly how we are doing? It's very different, I have to say. There's a lot talking and there's a lot of silence on yours, which is definitely mirroring what is happening in these worlds, and especially in Mother Vera. But do you have something like that also that really pushed you into very formal choices?
I'm just trying to think. There are moments, beautiful moments like that when you're filming, where you know that's a special. So there is a special moment, a special shot, where there's a moment where Vera's standing in front of an icon with two crosses kind of emerging behind her. And when I saw that through the camera and that moment happened, it felt that, similar, that something is here, and she was still, but also so restless. And that's what we could sense in Vera, there was this restlessness, and that all came through in that image, and that image has been noticed by, people who've worked with the footage, the editor, colorist, sitting in the second row there, and then another editor we worked with who made the trailer for the film, and he said when he watched the full film and that image came, it summarised the entire story, really. So I think, that image was very special. And another scene with the horses, which was our first trip to Belarus, and Vera introduced us to her horses that she looked after at the convent with some of the men who were in rehabilitation. And it's amazing, just the intimacy and the trust that she had with those animals. I've never seen, I was just crying filming it, as an interesting, I can't believe this is happening, in front of the camera. And I suppose those are the two sides to Vera, the spiritual side inside the monastery of wanting to be connected in that way, but then also very connected in an earthly way to the physical realm. So those are probably the two key moments, I would say.
Yeah. And lovely to see how things were unfolding indeed, especially, I remember exactly that scene with the horses as well, but also interesting how the contrast as well, like even when she is riding the horses, it's this really powerful middle of snow scene, and then you go back to the monastery and then you have all these conversations, and also I think the place of nature, but also silence and music. Can you tell us more a bit about how you approach the sound, and because I feel it's very immersive, but it's also, you really pay a lot of attention of what's happening, but also in nature, but also what is happening in the monastery. How was it for you to really pay attention for that one?
Well, the sound design really elevated the film, and we were very lucky to work with an amazing sound designer who's a friend, and he came on board. So we had 6 trips to Belarus, and before that it was just Alice and I. So Alice did an amazing job collecting sound and, just kind of on the hoof learning. And then he came for the 6th trip and recorded a whole library of stuff and just captured that world, and then spent, I think, 6 months working it all. So that's kind of a practical level, and we wanted to be very immersive. We wanted the silences to really speak and to have that contrast, between the busyness, the dynamic, and for the silences to be powerful, which I realise is really hard to do. It's really difficult to find how to do that in an edit, to make silences be held and not just, you have to construct things around it. And Leo, the sound designer, really, he worked to tiniest degree, even down to her breath. So on the shot with the crosses, which is in the first sequence of the film, second after the title, you hear her breath, you know, and that connection with her inner world kind of starts there, you know, and it was just incredible to work with somebody who has that level, just an ear, you know, and that level of dedication really to cinema and making it be the best it could be. Yeah, the sound.
Absolutely, absolutely. It really elevates it, yeah. Going back now to your film, because you have music, and also it was kind of a surprise, but a really nice surprise that Maggie's actually playing a lot of the music. How was it for you guys to find out that, and how do you realize, okay, we really have to use this in the film as well?
Yeah, I mean, we had no idea that Maggie could play the piano, and one evening after dinner she just started tinkering, and we're like, oh my god, this is amazing. And it became very clear to us that, you know, if you're making a documentary about two artists, then their DNA needs to be imbued with the filmmaking language. So the sound score was derived all from Maggie's music, and the imagery, the cinematography which Jacob did, derives from Joel. You know, the framing is very inspired by Joel, and the color grade also. And so, you know, it was really important for us to make a film that felt very reflective of them as artists.
Very good. I think this is a good moment to go to the second clip, which is indeed much different than the very first one we show of the film. Now we go from a calm scene to a more agitated scene of the film. Let's see the second clip.
Just to fill people in, Maggie broke her leg, and this is her returning home from hospital after a really, really painful time in hospital for the first time back home.
Uno, due, oh, you good, you good. Oh, Meg. You're here. I can't believe it. Oh, they brought you here safely. Safely, darling.
You just never talk to
I'm not going to talk to anybody. I'm not going to talk to anybody. I don't know. It was one of those ass calls.
Okay, this is the order of things.
Tell me.
Take a breath. Better one than that. I'm in quite a bit of pain right now from the ride.
Yeah, all the bumps.
So this is what I would like first. I'd like you to make a bowl of soapy water with the Santa Maria soap.
Yeah.
I'd like you to wash me down. Put my nightie on. Put my nightie on.
Yes. I got it right.
And then I would like an ice pack, the ginger drink, and something to eat right away so I can take an ibuprofen 600.
Okay.
Okay?
What order now?
I just told you.
Yes, right, okay.
Please tell him to go away.
Ciao. Sì. Oh, grazie. No,
Just say no.
it's fine.
Tell him
Okay.
he's going home.
Okay. Laura. There you go.
Lovely. Get us also back to this scene, because again, this is another. How did you find? Were you in the room when this one was happening? Or?
No.
No, okay.
It's a funny story that really sheds light on the reality of scrabbling around to make an observational documentary. I was actually in Tuscany on this particular trip alone. Manon was pregnant with our baby. I kind of got there as quickly as I could after we had spoken to Maggie and Joel about the possibility of continuing filming after this bad accident. So I had 2 cameras. I hid microphones in places where I thought they might capture something in this really stressful situation, as I knew it was going to unfold, and I knew the pathway that they were going to unload Maggie around the house and into the bedroom. I set this camera up, and then when the ambulance drivers left, I ran down the road where I had the second camera on a hill to film them driving away. Which I did, and then so I didn't know what was going to happen here. And then when I returned into the bedroom, this thing had happened, but I didn't actually know what had happened. And then I, cut the camera at some point, and the day went on. And I didn't even look at the footage because my laptop was too slow. So we didn't actually know what this piece of footage was until a couple of weeks after getting back and reviewing it. And again, it's sort of like these clips that we're talking about, these extraordinary moments of reality and alignment of, in this scene, a kind of relatable, painful, chaotic comedy of situations and phones ringing and a very long list of things and the stress and all of this stuff. So yes, this was like another one of those shooting stars that lands in your lap.
Excellent, and lovely to see it again, how things develop. Tell me, because you have been showing the film also at other festivals, I'm curious about the reactions on the audiences, but there's something, a lot of people also ask me, running a documentary film festival, about, but this is like too constructed, or how come we are still calling documentaries, I see the things. Is that something that have been part of the reactions, or you have been able to really explain, like, no, look, it's that the camera was there, and they may be, however, it has actually to do a lot with the access and the investment you have been doing as a project and as an artist project. How tell us more about that line, because a lot of people always try to figure it out, and especially when the framing and like the style is really present throughout the whole film.
Right. Yeah. It is something that's come up, and this is our first documentary. This is our first foray into documentary. It's our first feature film. So we're really learning on the fly, and we didn't know that these kinds of questions would come our way, because with all of this project was born from love and naivety. So we didn't expect people to ask us things like, why are your frames so perfect, and why is it all on a tripod, and stuff like this. These kinds of appreciation that kind of are sometimes twinned with a kind of what's the word? Kind of skepticism. Mm-hmm. Anyway, to that we say we didn't know what we were doing, and honestly, you only need to meet Maggie and Joel to see that these are the people that they are. You only need to try putting a camera on a tripod in a space that has great light to see what this kind of process is like. Life is remarkable, and from what we can tell, what we've learned, the art of observational documentary making is about it's about getting to know your participants and anticipating something several steps ahead, so that when it happens, you have already been ready and you're already rolling. It's the art of spidey sense.
Yeah, and on like a practical level with the sound, we would mic them up in the mornings, and they would wear their mic packs all day, and there would be microphones hidden around the house. So it was like they had freedom to move. We just had to be alert. And also our cameras were incredibly small, They were Leica DSLRs, and also Joel has about 100 cameras just laying around the house, so what's one more, right? They kind of just disappear. So we were lucky in that respect.
Yeah.
Was it the same for you, Cecile? Did you have also come across these kind of questions like about the construction and how much, like the camera is doing these amazing, beautiful aesthetically shots, for example?
Yeah, people kind of like, how do you do that? Is that real? And definitely what you said about catching, being ready, anticipating. I think I remember reading a quote from Cartier-Bresson, photographer, saying that as well. Street photography, it's the same thing. You have to be anticipating and ready to capture it. So very similar process of being ready. And what really helped Mother Vera, of course, is that everything's a ritual. Not everything, but a lot of life there is a ritual. So you know how it's going to fall. You know already what the frame is. You know how and you've been there so many times. You know that you're ready to get it. And yeah, I think. For me, I mentioned to you, we chatted the other day, the beginning of wanting to make documentaries was watching films by Gianfranco Rossi, an Italian director, who has a very similar style, this kind of a language which is so coherent and feels really poetic. And when I saw that, I thought, oh my God, that's what I want to do. I want to make documentaries that have, a language that elevates what you're catching. And I think it's about you have to have enough intimacy to be let in, enough to be able to get it in the way that you envision, or in the way that it shows itself to you, like you were saying before. It does. Once you put yourself in, it starts revealing how it's nature.
And being alert, I think that's definitely to see in both of the films. There's also something quite interesting in both films, but especially in Mother Vera, I would say this sense of transformation, that something was kind of going to happen, but it's because of the silences, it's like, I was always like, what's going to happen? Although it was, very quiet and with a lot of silences, but also it even push you as directors also to take transformations even on the formal style. Can you tell us more about that? Did you see that happening also every time with Vera? Like, oh wow, there's something really going on. There's a step, she's going to make some steps and we are moving forward to something.
Absolutely. From the beginning, meeting Vera, you could sense that there was something deep going on in this woman that she wanted to share and she could not really share, but she was communicating it without words, and that was what was guiding the camera, guiding the exploration. And yeah, that's kind of where it all came from. And so there is a tension just naturally in the energy, of between us and Vera in her situation. And I suppose the journey was unfolding that tension, and it was fascinating to go on that journey with her, and for her to, the film really is a confession, and for her to share that deepest truth with us was extraordinary. I mean, it's a real honour, and to find people who are willing to share themselves to that level really is just a gift for a film, for cinema. It was very exciting and also confusing because we didn't know what was going on and we didn't know what it was all about. And if anyone goes to watch the film, you'll see she's grappling with some quite big things inside.
Good. There's also transformation in your film with your characters as well. It's more of an ups and downs transformation as well, but I think being alert, it has been it's good that we are talking about that, because I think that's exactly what excellent documentary filmmakers are doing that. tell us more about that transformation, and I'm also curious with kind of the reactions you have got from people, because I can imagine that, especially, or even like yesterday, like people coming afterwards, and even when they were also at the premiere, I can imagine a lot of people came to them as well.
Yeah.
Tell us more about that kind of reaction and how people have seen this transformation and seen themselves or not in the film.
I think that's been the biggest gift of this film, is how people are, I guess how Joel and Maggie are a mirror to the viewer, and how people are able to bring so much of themselves onto these two people. They're a vessel for us to explore our relationships, our parents' relationships, our grandparents, what it is to be in love, what it is to be in a creative dynamic, whether you're married to the person or not, it doesn't really matter. It's just like the duality of life, like how do you live side by side with somebody, and how much do you bring of yourself, and how honest are you to them and to yourself. And they shamelessly show us how to maybe explore that. And people have related to the film in ways that we could not expect. And we made the film with love and with a hope that it would touch people, but we didn't think it would maybe have the effect it has had. And after every screening we've had, people have poured their hearts out to us. They've told us about their lives and how they relate and how they connect and what change they want to make, or who they're going to call, and who they're going to bring back to the next screening. And yeah, it's been a gift.
Yeah. I think also for folks who don't know the shape of this so much, the film, basically, Joel is a world famous photographer. Maggie is a very talented multidisciplinary artist, but kind of unrecognized. And along with the love and mortality themes, this is the large crease that needs ironing out throughout the film, is reckoning with that and massaging out those knots, so that when the end does come for one of them, the other one who's still left alive, there is a sense of completion and no more residual resentment or anything like that. And I think that those are life lessons that, if you're lucky enough to get to old age, then you can face that with a kind of consciousness if you're that person. But life is unexpected, and any of us could go at any time. And I think that what's so pertinent about Maggie and Joel's ability to constantly transform, talking about transformation, is that every day there's an opportunity in the everyday, and there are lessons for all of us to change if you have the courage to read them. And so when people watch this film, I think that they are inspired to read those lessons around us. And you can't talk about it anymore. It's an ephemeral mood and emotional intelligence, but I think that's what people plug into because they have an incredible way about them.
Was that the reaction also to Mother Vera, that do people really get that confession and really realize, like, wow, there's something that needs to get out, that maybe is asking me to confess to other things as well? How you have felt that?
There's been, people talk about the film being life-affirming, and I think people do get a sense, of her confession and what she has shared. People tend to have quite a lot of questions after the film. I won't say too much about what happens, but they want to know more, and people tend to be quite moved. Some people find it quite difficult, actually. It's difficult to say without talking too much about what happens, but generally people are moved, by and amazed by Vera. And she's just such a complex person, and how long does it take to get to know a person? My mum always says, I've been married to your father for over 40 years, I still don't know him. And Vera she's lived so many lives. And in terms of transformation, it's, that I suppose is really what it's about, the film, and that's her quest. in life. Yeah.
And the longing for connection and the connection with nature, and indeed also the longing for the importance of art and of talking and really having the difficult conversations as well and really seeing them, that both indeed in very special places. I think we have some time to have some questions from the audience, if anybody feels like, yeah, please here.
Wait a second. Hi, I wanted to ask about the sort of finance and process inside of, because in conversations I've had with documentary makers, you tend to start on your own with no support, and so how did that work for you as far as both of your films at this particular stage in the film's life?
Yeah, we spent our savings. That's how you make a film. Yeah, that's how we started out, and then we were incredibly lucky to get Sine Berge-Sorensen, somewhere in the audience, our producer, who is with Final Cut for Real, and sort of opened the door and the way to other possibilities of financing for our film. But we also had some private investment, and we begged a lot of people for money to help us on our way. But yes, I mean, we're in the process of developing our next doc, and it's equally as hard, and yes, you have to spend your own money until people see the magic in what you're creating and are willing to go on that adventure with you. But yeah, I think you need to start.
Exactly the same. Just need to keep going. I mean, in our case, we still owed money from the film, you know, it's like, and we just kept going until we got support from Sundance. It took ages to get there. We had so many applications, and eventually that was okay, somebody believes in it, and from there it got a bit easier, but yeah.
I think, you know, it's a marketplace and a genre that's ever evolving, obviously, with all of film that's happening right now. You know, Sina is one of the most seasoned, incredible producers in the documentary space, period. She produced The Act of Killing and The Look of Silence by Joshua Oppenheimer. She produced Flea, President, and so many, and actually Josh Oppenheimer's new film, The End, which is a fiction film. But from what we can tell, you kind of have to start again every time, because things have changed, the landscape has changed, and you need so much, I mean, belief always is underscored with doubt, but you need enough courage to keep moving forward, and never to forget the quality of the material that you're sitting on. You know, it's special, and you just need to learn how to see it fresh every time. Yeah.
And how to write about it.
Yes.
Yeah, and I actually think that doing like BFI applications or any institution like that, public funding applications, will help you understand what it is that you're trying to approach and how you're trying to approach it and how you're going to present it to an audience. And unless you know that, then people aren't going to be able to share their money. So yeah.
And unashamedly, we have a market at Sheffield Dog Fest, so please try, I would say. Yes, yes, please.
Thank you so much for the talk. Just want to ask, kind of in light of what you just said, especially about the market. So I'm also a documentary filmmaker, but one of the questions I feel in a lot of festivals that gets sort of overlooked is the question of morality. You know, as you know, once you shape the nucleus of the film and you're really deep into it, where do you think your responsibility really lies? At what point do you feel like, I feel uncomfortable in filming this, I feel uncomfortable in sharing this, but then do you sort of have do you then have to wrestle with yourself and negotiate a way where you feel responsible either to the truth, to the character, to your audience? How do you sort of negotiate all of those? Because I feel there are a lot of times that in a lot of situations, people don't talk about it, and a lot of unease has been completely overlooked.
With Maggie and Joel, we I mean, obviously consent is critical, right, at anything that you do. And with Maggie and Joel, they opened the door and they said, warts and all, their words. And so there was no place that we weren't allowed to film. And there was no conversation that we weren't allowed to film. But we also talked about all the events that would happen in the day and all the conversations that would happen. You know, much of the process of the filmmaking was unpacking the day and how we felt about what they were talking about, or how they felt about what they were talking about. Like, that was a huge part of it, and that is also what allowed them to trust us so much in the filmmaking process. And then in the edit, you know, we edited this film for a year, and every day Jacob and I would leave the edit room and we would ask ourselves, is this Maggie and Joel? And if we didn't say yes, then we would go back in the next day and we would make sure it was them. And that was critical. We needed them to be able to see themselves and sit down and watch, you know, a close to final cut film and be able to recognize themselves, but not just recognize themselves, like not have notes, right? And we achieved that because we made something that was honest and authentic and real and truthful to who they are as people.
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's, I would say, just a continual dialogue with your protagonist, and in Vera's case it was really working hard to protect her, and you know, she was going through very vulnerable moments whilst we were filming with her over the years, and it was a constant dialogue. And also, as we got to know her better, we knew that it is on her, everything is on her terms. So that was great to just know, you know, she's Belarusian, Ukrainian, she's from a part of the world where people speak quite directly. So that you kind of, we knew where we stood. And really the challenge with Vera was just really delicately handling what she was going through and waiting until she was ready to share. And when we knew she was ready, she would come and share. But it was, we had to wait and just respect that it was on her time scale. Yeah, that's how it was. And there were moments it wasn't easy. As I said, she's a complex person, and like we all are, of course. And yeah, we had to navigate and just keep in dialogue. Yeah.
Any other questions in the room? I think is there something will come here.
Hello. So yeah, you were speaking about like observation documentary. Now you have to be like 7 steps ahead in order to capture everything. Is there anything from either of your projects, like one moment that you missed or didn't capture that you're still keeping yourself?
You'll never know.
I don't know, I got asked this the other day and I couldn't answer that question. I feel I think the accident might have been the only thing that we weren't really present for, but actually Joel recorded it, so in a way we were. So no.
Yeah, and I think, or if there was, I mean, we filmed for a long time, so I think those, if that happened, then you learn from those lessons. I can't remember any specifics, but I do recall the feeling of kicking myself, and I think that would suggest yes. But I mean, like anything in life, you make a mistake and then you work twice as hard next time not to mess it up.
Yeah, I mean, you go through so much pain. I went through so much pain worrying about missing stuff, and there was something big that we did miss that in the end was okay. But yeah, I just realised hearing that question how you just buried all of that once you've got this page. So I can't think.
Yeah.
It's just the suffering. You just think, oh my God, you know, is this a film? Have we got it in the bag? You know, and with the character
Exactly.
like Mother Vera, who, you know, during the process was quite hot and cold. You know, as I said, it was on her terms, and it felt like you know, in moments that it might just run away from us, we might not get it, you know, so nightmares and sleepless nights, yeah, and things we missed.
You know, like, it's a good point to touch on. We are metal detectorists, you know, and we're scanning the beaches looking for bits and pieces, and it's hard sometimes to know when to stop, and definitely that anxiety that you talk about is such a feeling, and when do you stop? When does this process of collecting end? And probably in your case as well, you start editing whilst you're filming as well, and piecing sequences together, and it's a strange and mystifying feeling, but at some point I think the story locks together and it feels right, and there is a narrative and a kind of fable quality to the piece, and as the adage goes, you never finish a work of art, you just have to walk away.
Absolutely, and I think also in both of our films, it's an emotional relationship with your protagonist, and I think you know when you've completed that. It's a journey together, and they're willing to, it's cathartic, you know, they're willing to show themselves, it's hopefully they're learning, and you're learning about yourselves, and I think, I don't know, for me with my films, it's always been like, I feel the end. I know that, we've arrived there together, and it kind of closes.
Let's have the last question. I think you were the one. Yeah, I think it's on here. You will have time after the session to come to them, but I think we have to move for the next event that is happening here as well.
Firstly, thank you. The films look incredible. I've not had the chance to see them yet, but I will be soon. My question's kind of like been asked in parts as the Q&A has gone on, but I think you may have partly answered it in the last question, but I'll just ask, what is something, because you all seem to sit so closely to either the subject matter or the people who are the subjects in your work, what is something that you will take away from the most from these experiences, whether it's creatively, professionally or personally?
Nice.
Yeah, beautiful question. It's definitely personal, and I think it is about, you never arrive at a point of your life where you can retire from life. There's always room to grow and explore oneself and develop more relationships, new relationships, better relationships. And for me, that idea doesn't exhaust me, it excites me, it gives me an opportunity to step into an older age with the knowledge that it's not over.
Okay, it's quite cheesy, but it's, I think, making this film and Mother Vera, she taught me to trust myself, to trust my instinct and to, and just know that it will come together. And I've really learned about the way I make films in this film that there is a thread, because I work very intuitively, and I find the writing is a nightmare. Oh my God, it's so hard, and it's so important to do. But so much of it for me is intuitive, and it feels like there is a thread that I know is there. That's it's sewing itself together. But then on the other side, you don't know if it's going to come to end. And you're dealing with real life. You don't know what So yeah, I think that's what she taught me. Trust myself.
I think something that I can definitely take away into life and further projects is that, like, as an artist, it depends on the subject matter and your form, but I think you're always trying to identify your true self in whatever story you're telling. And how can you find yourself, how can two people find themselves in a documentary that is not about them? And I think that this process showed for me that even in documentary, or my background is in street photography, if you really bring yourself and your gut and your value system to any given creative situation, you exist in that, and in that way, it will be pure to yourself, and that's such an incredible lesson to find in making a documentary, that you know, all of us, all three of us, exist in these films, and the lesson, I suppose, is in staying true to every moment, and if it doesn't feel right, quietly think about it and interrogate that, and only push on when you find yourself in that space, and then it will always be authentically you.
I think this is a wonderful way to end the session, and thank you very much. I think, again, your films really say a lot about the quality and the way documentary filmmaking is moving, that is true to itself. There is a lot of anticipation, there is a lot of care, that the importance of being connected with the main characters is really important, as important also as the film style, to connect with audiences. You know, all this transformation, but also honoring your characters. I think there's a lot of that in both of the films, and it's just a pleasure that you have been here as well. All the good luck for the coming festivals, distributions. If you haven't seen the films, please try to catch them up. There are still premiere of Mother Berries on Sunday. There may be also other screenings.
On Monday.
On Monday, there's another screening of Two Strangers, and if they come to the cinemas, please don't miss them, because you really need to see them both on the big screen. But thanks a lot for being here.
Thank you.
Say, Mother Vera, on Sunday, there's no tickets, but there is a press and industry screening, which I think if you have a pass, you can go to. It's very early, I'm afraid. It's 9:20 on Sunday morning.
Worth it.
Of course, worth it. Of course. Thank you very much.